Jim Webb, a man with a simple dream.
I've been trying to get in this conversation about 10 minutes.
All he wanted was a chance to be heard, and now he's doing the only thing he can.
I'm withdrawing from any consideration of being the Democratic Party's nominee for the presidency.
Tonight, we bid farewell to a Democrat. Godspeed, Senator.
I've been waiting for 10 minutes.
Jim Webb. He's been waiting for 10 minutes.
See you around, Jim. In our lineup tonight, a whole bunch of secrets, starting with Joe Biden. What's he doing? I never know what he's doing. Biden is keeping his lips sealed for now about what he might do and what he might not do, and when he might do it or when he might not do it when it comes to running for president. But meanwhile, in our brand new Bloomberg Politics St. Anselm, New Hampshire poll, Biden is lagging at 10% in the Democratic field. Bernie Sanders leads Hillary Clinton 41-36. But the news is really how much Mr. Veep is getting lost in the shuffle since that Las Vegas debate and the attempts by Clinton since then to raise the ante. Mark, big poll, new poll. What stands out to you?
Full details on our poll with St. Anselm College, our partners up in New Hampshire on BloombergPolitics.com. Looking at the Biden piece of this, there was some polling information earlier when he was earlier in his consideration that was good for him, head to head with the Republicans, etc. This poll did not have a lot of good news for him. Let's look at two traits. Their Vice President Biden would say that if he ran, he should be kicking butt. One is we looked at the question of who cares about people like you. All right, so here's Clinton versus Sanders. You see 51-23. When you had Biden in the mix, only 10% said Biden cares about people like you more than Clinton and Sanders. Ready to be president, another trait where Joe Biden would say he would want to do super well and where he should. 21% said he was ready to be president, the most ready to be president. Clinton more than doubling him. So if Joe Biden gets in, I still think these polls don't matter because once he's in the race, there's a different dynamic. But he cannot be encouraged by how people in New Hampshire view him.
I want to come back to the the Clinton-Biden dynamic in one moment, but I will say the last time we did this poll in June, we did Sanders and Clinton. You look at these numbers now, 41% for Sanders, 36% for Clinton. Sanders up 17% since June. Clinton down 20% since June. At least in New Hampshire, the big mo is with Bernie Sanders.
It's now commonplace to see polls that Sanders ahead, but she can still catch up. This is still, I think people are missing the dynamic here. She's not that far behind in any poll, but she's behind in New Hampshire. All right. Joe Biden may not have had anything explicit to say today about his presidential intentions, but he did talk up a storm at George Washington University where the Veep dropped some super subtle jabs at Hillary Clinton, or at least seemed to, in a conversation with the former Vice President Walter Mondale at an event honoring Mondale. Here's Biden for the second straight day giving an answer that contrasted with what Clinton said at last week's debate when she listed Republicans amongst the enemies she's most proud to have.
Whenever there's a problem, I get sent to the Hill, which, by the way, is a useful use of my time. Because I really respect the members up there, and I still have a lot of Republican friends. I don't think my chief enemy is the Republican Party. This is a matter of making things work.
Now, it is true Biden says stuff about Republicans all the time, but saying it 2 days in a row after what Clinton said in the debate, some of the Clinton people have noticed. Later in the same event, Biden threw some shade Clinton's way on the topic of international diplomacy.
I will get sent to go speak to Putin or go speak to Erdogan or go speak to whomever, and it's because the Secretary of State, we've had two great Secretaries of State, but when I go, they know that I am speaking for the president. There is nothing missed between the lip and the cup, that whatever I say, the president is saying.
All right, a third thing that Biden said that's getting people's attention is when he talked about bin Laden and killing Osama bin Laden. Biden seemed to contradict previous statements he's made about what advice he gave President Obama before the raid that killed bin Laden. Now, today he says that he privately encouraged his boss to go for it. And when he was listing those people in the cabinet who supported unambiguously President Obama going for bin Laden, he left Hillary Clinton off the list. So, John, is the vice president being careless, playful, or purposeful with the remarks today that contrasted himself with Hillary Clinton?
Joe Biden is sometimes careless, not in this instance. Joe Biden is often playful, not in this instance. Purposeful in each one of these instances, I think. He knows exactly what he's doing. I'm not saying that any of those things indicate that he will or won't run, but these were very calculated. The bin Laden thing, most of all, it has been a thorn in his side for a long time, that he has been perceived as having been not fully in favor of the OBL raid. We know from reporting that we did contemporaneously that people around the vice president at that time, not today, but 2 years ago, 3 years ago, said to us that Biden was kind of like playing a little game in this argument, trying to give Obama cover, trying to draw out opinions.
In larger groups, he sort of Socratically said maybe this isn't a good idea.
Right.
But as he suggested today, privately told the president.
And that he and Obama were sort of in cahoots on that scheme.
Yeah. Look, whether Joe Biden's planning to run or not, and we don't know, some people who are veteran Biden watchers look at what he said today and said he's chafing at the notion that he's not doing well, that people are basically saying you missed your chance, you can't run, Hillary Clinton is too strong.
Let me do real quick. Let's look at this, what Clinton's been doing to throw shade at Biden since the debate. Today, she's got an event with 50 black mayors endorsing her. Tomorrow, David Brock's going to take on the Benghazi Committee in Philadelphia. Thursday, you've got the Benghazi hearing. Friday, she's seeing the DNC Women's Forum, a rally with Terry McAuliffe from Virginia, and going on Rachel Maddow. And then, of course, on Saturday, she's going to be in Iowa at the JJ with Bill Clinton and Katy Perry. That is Hillary Clinton saying, Joe Biden, step back.
There's a lot of show of force, not just in these events, but a lot of things she's been doing. Bill Clinton is wondering whether Joe Biden's getting in. They're trying to make it as hard for him as possible.
No doubt about that. All right, over at BloombergPolitics.com, our resident mad scientist, Sasha P. Eisenberg, has published a rare, lengthy, on-the-record conversation with Mike Murphy, the guru behind Jeb Bush's super PAC Right to Rise. In their conversation, Murphy makes the case for a Jeb comeback, employing two primary arguments. One, that Donald Trump cannot, under any circumstances, win the general election. And number two, that by March, Jeb will be the only Republican candidate with enough resources to go the distance. So, Mark, I offer you a bit of a three-way question, a multiple choice. Do you think that argument is convincing, compelling, or simply ridiculous?
It's the best argument they can make, because right now you look at the state polls in the first 4 states in February, Jeb Bush is nowhere in any of them. The notion that, though, you can be shut out in February and come back with super PAC money in March, most people I know don't agree with that. And I still think Jeb Bush is going to need a surge in Iowa or New Hampshire or South Carolina or Nevada, one of the four, to put himself in the game.
Look, Sasha asks Mike Murphy at one point about what happens if he doesn't win any of those first 4 states. And Murphy says, I don't want to engage in hypotheticals. And as you pointed out earlier today, the whole interview in some sense is an exercise in engaging in hypotheticals. Yeah. Look, right now, Mike Murphy's spending millions of dollars to get people to focus on Jeb's Florida record. You know what they're focusing on? Jeb Bush defending George W. Bush's Iraq War record. This is not working the way Mike Murphy wanted it to work.
And, of course, as we said when they made the decision to send Jeb Bush's top strategist, longtime strategist, to the super PAC, they took a risk. Murphy's now maybe sending signals to Florida. May not be working.
Maybe?
We'll see. Maybe. All right, coming up, it's early evening with Seth Meyers. Seth Meyers is here in studio. We'll ask him, amongst other things, a desert island question after this word from our sponsors.
You have been critical of the Trump campaign so far. Are you surprised he's running? Are you surprised he's doing so well and getting this kind of traction with Republican
my initial
voters?
impression that insulting the whole class of people was a bad move. But apparently not.
No, yeah.
Look, everything about me is different. For one, I'm on your show. Let's just start with that.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Seth, you're from New Hampshire.
I am, yes.
People from New Hampshire, people from Iowa, they take their responsibility very, very seriously.
New Hampshire is lovely this time of year.
Right. It's true. It's true, yeah. Everybody loves it in March.
And I will tell you, you are a major celebrity there.
Yeah, well, it's a very small state.
It's the pride of New Hampshire, the man from Manchester, the comic from Concord. We actually have no idea what city you're from, Seth Meyers, but we do know you went to the most important and best university in America, Northwestern.
So Northwestern University, and a proud graduate of West High in Manchester. So you came close.
Manchester's very good.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming. I want to start with some New Hampshire trivia.
Oh, great.
Ready to go?
Great.
Let's see how well you know your home state.
I bet I won't do well, yeah.
State fruit?
State fruit, snowball.
Pumpkin.
Pumpkin, okay.
State insect?
State insect, black fly.
Ladybug.
Okay.
State sport?
State sport
Easier.
Is hockey.
Skiing.
Okay.
Let me ask you. This is not trivia. I'll ask you a serious political
Okay, gotcha.
question.
I'm 2 for 3. Okay, go.
That's not what actually kind of open. That's right. Do you think it's like New Hampshire's got an outsized importance in presidential politics?
Yeah.
Do you think that's right, fair, and proper?
I don't. I think it's pretty foolish that it's the same 2 states, Iowa and New Hampshire, every election that sort of set the tone. I would be a lot happier if they sort of rotated it around. With that said, I do think people from New Hampshire take it very seriously, and one of the benefits of a small state, obviously, is I do think most of the voters get a chance to meet the candidates in a way you can't on a larger state. But I certainly, I would not be upset, even though obviously a lot of people in my home state would be. I would not be upset if they switched it up.
I want to be clear, just after offering that answer, you're not going to be welcome back in the state after that.
That's fine.
Did you intersect a lot with the primary when you were growing up? Were you there when Muskie cried?
I wasn't there, but I graduated high school in '92, and every single candidate that year came through. I actually introduced Jerry Brown on stage because I was in the student council. Because they would all.
Of that somewhere?
I don't know. I know I got to wear a plaid shirt instead of a coat and tie because it was Jerry Brown. I saw Clinton speak that year, and everybody came through.
Did you work on campaigns? Were you?
Oh, and I was too cool. No, it wasn't. No, but I never worked on any campaigns. But it was great when it. That was the nice thing about growing up there is you were very aware of how the politics worked.
So we showed you doing a bunch of interviews with a bunch of presidential candidates. What do you do to get ready for an interview like that?
Well, it's funny because you bone up more than you would for someone who has a movie or someone who has a television show. Also because you want find it very important to be intelligent, and you want to project information to the audience because that's the only reason to have candidates on. I will say it's hard, and maybe you guys will learn this as well. If you ask a candidate a question, they will talk the whole time unless you interrupt them. They kind of got
to do the lean-in thing where you say,
yeah. If you notice, as that clip package went, there was more. I was leaning farther and farther forward.
All right, let me run through some of the candidates that you've interviewed.
Yeah.
Just give us like your one-sentence thumbnail.
Okay,
on what
gotcha.
They're like. Ready? Here we go. John Kasich.
John Kasich seems like a very nice man, but I don't know if the electoral college right now is looking for a reasonable man.
Okay. Ted Cruz.
Ted Cruz, I found him a very aggressive debater. He was more interesting than most of my guests because he was very willing to go back and forth. I think he's very used to that. You can tell he likes conflict, and that made him an interesting guest.
Carly Fiorina.
Carly Fiorina was sharp, but maybe a little bit less charismatic than I was expecting.
Really?
Yeah, but I found her to be very sharp.
How so?
I just, as a talk show guest, I didn't find
it to be wowed.
I'm not wowed, but I feel like when people run for president, they have to have a little bit more sparkle, maybe.
Yeah. Okay, and last, Mr. Sparkle, Senator Graham, Lindsey Graham.
Lindsey was all sparkle when he was on my show. Nothing's like a 1%. Like when you're pulling a 1%, you kind of come on late night. He was dealing. He had a lot of jokes. He had some loaded up jokes, I think. You can always tell when they pre-planned their off-the-cuff joke.
I can't believe you forgot Bernie Sanders, though. How about that?
Bernie Sanders, look, he's got a good sense of humor. He was very laid back. It was fun to talk to.
Okay. So we've done some reporting, as we are wont to do, and we're told by sources familiar with your thinking that your dream interview was with Vladimir Putin.
Would love to get him on the show. Okay. Great impressionist.
So here's we're going to do a little practice right now. Okay. I'm going to be Vladimir Putin.
Okay.
Ready?
Yeah.
Mr. Seth Meyers, it's very good to meet you.
Okay.
Before we send you to the labor camp, what would you like to know about me?
Well, I should let you know, Vladimir, it's the way the culture of talk shows in our country work is I ask you questions. I feel like you've sort of stolen this away from me. I'm not a guest on your show. This isn't Crimea. This is Late Night with Seth Meyers. You can't just take this.
Okay. That's like, if you took off at this point, if I were Vladimir Putin, I'd take my shirt off, and then you'd be done.
Yeah.
All right. Being funny is important to get elected, right? Like Clinton, Obama, and Bush all had moments of late night triumph, right? All of them did.
Yes.
So Jeb Bush, what's the funniest thing about him?
Well,
I
will say it is different now than I feel like it's ever been before as far as how important it is to be funny because there's so many talk shows. We all enjoy having these people on as guests. There's, in a weird way, the market's a little bit saturated. I feel like, for all their best efforts, I don't know if anybody was going to have some late night moments going to elevate them.
Hillary on SNL, I think.
Hillary on SNL was the best so far.
Broke through. Does it rate when you have them on? Do those shows do well?
Yes. I mean, certainly. I remember, the SNL. One of my biggest SNL memories was when Sarah Palin came on in 2008, and that was the highest rated show in decades. And we'll see if that'll be the case when Donald's
Your Pataki episode, I think.
Pataki was very big for us.
That would be huge.
But he did his rap. Yeah.
Seth Meyers, you stick around. We're going to continue this conversation. We'll be right back. We were here with Seth Meyers. He's awesome.
Welcome back. We're still here talking to Seth Meyers.
I want to ask you about Weekend Update.
Yeah.
Right? So was this is like the first time you ever probably talked about politics on TV, right?
Yeah, to some degree, that's probably true, yes.
Did that kind of whet your appetite for doing more of that kind of thing? Like, what was that experience like, and is it easier to do that during a presidential campaign?
Well, certainly at SNL, every aspect of politics, whether it's writing about it or telling jokes about it, it's so helpful when the audience is paying attention to what's going on. I feel like audiences find something inherently comic about campaigns, about debates. It's the most time that elections, or politics, I should say, are like reality television. There's winners
Especially
and losers. Exactly. So it was always easier in election cycles, and I think that that's why you're seeing so much politics on all the late night shows now.
Yeah.
Probably your greatest connection to American history, if I'm not mistaken, is the 2011 White House Correspondents' Dinner.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on there.
Yeah.
That was the night of bin Laden.
It was.
You and the president hanging out while he's ordering the killing of an international terrorist. But also, you and the president kind of took down Trump.
Yeah.
2-on-1 that night.
Well, we thought we took him down, but
yeah, turns out
we not.
Yeah. Turns out you only made him angry.
Exactly. It was like a kung fu movie where he went and trained for 3 years.
And after you took him down, or tried to take him down, he came back at you, right?
Yeah.
Remember what he said about you?
He said he's called me a third-rate comedian.
Yeah, I believe he said you sounded like you had marbles in your mouth.
In my mouth.
So talk about when you took on Trump.
Well,
were you looking at him? Were you making eye contact with him?
No. I will say in general, have you been in that room?
Oh,
yeah, I was there that
Worst
night.
room on earth.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so wide.
It's a little spread out.
And it's impossible to have any sense of where anyone in the audience is sitting.
And then the pressure is really intense. Is that the toughest room you've ever played?
Toughest room I've ever played. Not just because of the audience and how poorly arranged the room is, but just being on a dais where the president's, one seat away while you're telling jokes.
Did you know he was going to take on Trump too? Was there coordination?
I didn't. There wasn't coordination, and I was a little nervous because. Let me just point something out. I do think it's a little unfair that the president goes first, especially this president.
Yeah.
He's so funny.
He kills.
He should not be opening. He should be closing. Because nothing's harder than following the president.
If you agree to do it again, you can do it. And if Pataki's president and you want to not follow.
But I will say that the Trump thing that whole night was when you do something like that, sometimes you just get very lucky because you have to write about what's happened that year in politics. So that was very fresh, the Trump talking about birth certificates. And I think it made for a better night because there was something that recently happened. You weren't pulling back to a story, a DC story from 7 months ago.
It was electric. Do you remember any of your Trump jokes from that night?
I
got some of them here, but see if you remember.
I don't look. It was a big night for me. I remember.
Okay, go ahead.
Donald Trump says if he runs for president, it'll be as a Republican, which is funny because I just assumed he was running as a joke.
That's exactly, practically verbatim. You're like Rain Man. All right, I'll start one for you. You finish it. Ready?
Yeah.
Donald Trump often appears on Fox.
Which is ironic because a fox often appears on Donald Trump's head.
Man, again, verbatim. All right, last one. This is awesome. Donald Trump said recently he has a great relationship
with the blacks, but unless the blacks are a family of white people, I bet he's mistaken.
Wow.
Again, verbatim.
Wow, incredible, right?
Can't do my wedding vows, but I can do those three jokes.
That's excellent. How do you think Trump's doing this time?
Look, I have been proven wrong 7 times in the Trump campaign about how long he would last and whether or not this was real. So I do have to sort of tip my cap. I'm impressed at his staying power and what he is plugged into with the American people, but and as a comedy writer and as somebody who does what I do for a living, the longer the better.
I'll tell you something you may not know that will make it seem even more unfair in retrospect that the president went ahead of you.
Yeah.
Was that writing the jokes that night for the president going after Trump was Judd Apatow.
Yes.
So that sort of, that.
No, exactly.
He's very good on the delivering comedy, and he has some very good writers on his team.
Well, the year before, they had asked myself and the Weekend Update people to write, and we all chipped in jokes. So it's funny. I mean, obviously he has America's best will show up for the president.
All right, take your comedy face off for a moment, off, and be a New Hampshire citizen, former New Hampshire citizen. I'm going to ask you some poll questions that we've been asking voters in New Hampshire.
Okay.
You answer. Who would you trust more to take on Putin, face off against Putin? Bush or Trump?
Bush.
Bush.
Yeah.
Who would you trust more to handle the economy, Bush or Trump?
Bush.
Who would you trust? Who seems more presidential to you, Bush or Trump?
I don't trust Trump.
I'm getting that. Yeah. You are out of step.
Yeah.
You're out of step with New Hampshire voters.
That I'm out of step.
Okay.
I think it's just possible you're also not a Republican.
Yeah, no, that's possible.
Maybe it's possible.
It's possible.
Realm of possibility.
Lots
Okay,
possible.
So let me ask you, so one of the things that's weird, you got all these guys who are not polling at all well, who are in this race, on the Republican side especially, but also on the Democratic side.
Yeah.
A guy like Lincoln Chafee.
Yeah.
Right? Do you see that guy as fair game, or do you, by making a joke, do you elevate him? Do you kind of help him? Like, how do you think about those marginal candidates as a source of comedy or not?
With all due respect, I don't think Lincoln Chafee can be helped. Jokes or no jokes. I mean, again, like there's a certain amount of hubris that anyone, even a qualified candidate, has when they say, you know who'd be perfect to run America? Me. Yeah. And so anytime they walk out on stage or, they announce they're running or they show up at a debate, like they're fair game. I don't think you can, there's no need to have sympathy for someone who wants to be in the public eye and wants to represent the American people.
Sure. All right, last question, and take this one seriously too, but then comedy twist it after you give it seriously.
That's usually my approach.
21 candidates, I know you have them memorized. If you're on a desert island for 3 years, like Gilligan's Island, you got enough coconuts and all that, so there's no food issue. You can take any of the 21 with you, just the two of you. Who would you take and why?
3? I get to take 3 or just
one.
get to 1? Okay,
3
gotcha.
years,
3 years,
one a companion.
I mean, you're not there for life, but you're there for a long time.
And you can factor in other needs you might have during the 3 years if you wish.
Right, because if I want sweet, sweet music, I get Martin O'Malley on the guitar.
Exactly.
Right? That's maybe that's nice.
Yeah.
I guess this is just this politics aside.
Yeah.
Who you want for 3 years?
Who do you want to live with for 3 years?
I want a doctor. I'm taking Dr. Ben Carson. I think it's important to have medical care, and I think over the course of 3 years, that would give him time to tell me at least one anecdote.
That is a fantastic thing, although there's almost no way that he would go onto the island with you unless you were armed.
That's true.
You're Mr. Practical. You take the physician.
Fantastic.
I take a physician. Look, I mean, this is what this is about, right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah,
look, no matter who I'm bringing with, it's going to be a terrible 3 years. I just want my brain to be right when I get back.
And if you happen to give birth to conjoined twins, he can sort that problem out for you right there on the spot.
I don't know how that's going to happen.
All right. Seth Meyers, thank you very much. You are fantastic and awesome in every way. And
Thanks, guys.
Thank you for saying with all due respect, since that's the name of the show. We are live 24/7 on BloombergPolitics.com, and tomorrow our resident mad scientist, Sasha Eisenberg, joins us on the show for a look at part 2 of his scintillating interview with Jeb Bush super PAC impresario Mike Murphy. We're just hoping that Sasha brings his speakers.
Also tomorrow, more cool stuff from our New Hampshire presidential poll. You'll not want to miss it. Lots on the Republican race, digging deeper on the Democratic race. New Hampshire poll with our partners from St. Anselm. Until tomorrow, thanks for watching. Sayonara.